The Akashic Records, they are soul's library of literally everything that's happened. It's got all those actions, it's got all those experiences, it's got all those interactions in there, but not just this lifetime, it's got all the lifetimes. Before, after, your parallel lives, like all of those are there.
Kanika Vasudeva,
an Akashic
Records reader,
and energy coach.
Often a lot of times we're like, hey, what is my purpose? In this one sentence, like just find your happiness, just do that. That is aligning to your purpose.
So how do we tap into those records?
Whatever your place is, sometimes for people that could be drawing, that going out in the nature, that could be meditating, that could be your favorite exercise. Okay, the good way to know is like when...
Welcome to It's Your Choice podcast. Today on the show, we have Kanika joining us. Thank you, Kanika, for your time today.
Thanks a lot, Sally. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So, Kanika, you are involved with the Akashic Records. What exactly are those?
Okay, so the Akashic Records, they are our soul's library of literally everything that's happened. So think of it as like since the time you were born, in this lifetime, it's got all those actions, it's got all those experiences, it's got all those interactions in there, but not just this lifetime. It's got all the lifetimes before, after, your parallel lives, like all of those are there. And now magnify that vision a little bit more. It's got yours, it got mine, it's got every living thing and every other entity, everybody's interactions, their experiences, everything. So combined, it's a lot of consciousness. And the reason why I tap into this mystical library is because it has this vast knowledge. So a lot of what happens to us is because of things that happened in our childhood, things that happened when we were teenagers, things that happened in our past lives. Like sometimes we may not know this. I had a client, I was looking at her and she had a lot of recurring female infections. You know, she was just going from one fungal infection to another bacterial infection and then back to fungal infections. And it was just not finishing. And so she wanted to know what was the story behind that. And as I tuned into it, I saw that in the 1800s, so imagine how far back, that's when she had a past life. And in that past life, she was healthy. She was giving birth to a baby who was also healthy. But in the 1800s, they did not have as many doctors or even the medical science advancement as much. So she's lying on the bed and she's trying to push the baby out. And there's a whole lot of blood flow that's happening because she's just trying to push the baby out. And it was a very, very long, intensive labor. By the time she's managed to push the baby out, the baby's passed away. Oh. She's okay. And like she lives in that life. So that's like in the 1800s time-wise. And yet now she is in this life and she's still feeling the impact of that. So that was the time where her lesson was really to learn about owning her body. And she was trying to really, do what other people were telling her to do in the room and push it out that way. She wasn't able to trust her body in her own healing as much, which is what her body and what her soul lesson was then. And this is what she was carrying on now. So the beautiful thing is that when we heal that energy, it also heals the infections. It also heals that cycle, because this is what her soul really wants to learn, that, hey, you are powerful as a soul, just own your own, and I'm not saying anything like don't go to the doctors, please, not at all like that. I'm just saying work hand in hand with them and don't give anyone your agency. Like as much as the medicines or the treatments are supposed to look after you, also look at the underlying cause of the stress and what is causing that to you. The beautiful thing is not just that, when I did that, she's like, oh, this also explains why I don't want to talk about kids anymore. Like my partner will say, hey, we should have a child. And I just cannot bear that. Like, I don't even understand why. But this was coming from her past life where she'd lost a child. So subconsciously, she's still carrying that memory. that, okay, what happens in childbirth and I might just lose that. So she's so scared of it that she's bringing it to this lifetime and she's going like, don't even want to think about it. Like, don't want that. And it's not that she doesn't like kids or anything, but she just did not want to think about the whole process. So she wasn't ready. And so we could clear off that energy as well. So the Akashic Records are this beautiful place that carry this whole library of information. And when we tap into that, we can understand our lessons, why we had some experiences. We can also heal that, and we can erase that root cause of whatever is causing that pattern in our life. And so we can move forward with that awareness.
So, how do we tap into those records?
Well, I'm an Akashic Records reader, so I'll usually just tap in with permission and, look into my clients or myself that way. My favorite piece of work. uh, uh, for um, for everyone else, I would say that we get programmed to believe that we are needing to depend on someone else to tell us more about us, to give us our answers. We just get programmed like that. And I'm so glad that you asked this question because anyone can. And all you need to do is sit down, have a very solid intent for yourself, tune into yourself, whatever is your favorite way, whether that is meditation or so on. Then, however your channels are, you just ask and you trust that guidance more. Now, in the beginning, especially because Akashic Records is a much higher frequency, as you can understand, because it holds such a library of information, there's almost anything that you can do there. So it just might need a little bit more time to get there. But I would say start with the smaller things, like whatever is not working out for you. Start by asking, hey, why is this happening? And not why from a victim mindset. By victim mindset, I just mean like sometimes, and I've done that as well, we go down the self-pity route almost, and we go like, why is this happening to me? We're not really looking for answers, but we're almost looking like, okay, I sort of want to feel like, yes, I was victimized, everything was wrong, so just give me more information. Not that, but shift your
Right.
vibration and really ask, like, what is the pattern? What is it that my soul really needs to learn? And you'll start getting the answers, but still yourself, calm yourself, and then come to that. Whatever your place is, sometimes for people that could be drawing, that could be going out in the nature, that could be meditating, that could be your favorite exercise. And when you are in that zone, like okay, the good way to know is like when you have ideas flowing to you, that's usually when your channel's clear, you're ready to receive, and you can go like, okay, now I want to know why did this happen, and allow yourself to trust there.
And is it best to start with kind of smaller questions, smaller things, and then work on that and build up? Or if somebody's having something that feels really big to them, to go right trying to figure out or get answers for the big thing? Or is it better to practice first with some smaller things to have that connection before thinking of, okay, I'm going to try to connect and I'm going to figure out my biggest problem that I have going on right now?
Um, well, I'd say it really depends on how open your channel is and how much neutral are you to the topic, right? Because a lot of receiving depends on how ready you are. And so if your emotions are getting in the way, then it can get harder. The technique because I'm a coach, so I teach my students as well, and I actually run an energy healing circle where we get together weekly and we help people see, understand themselves. And the technique I employ there is, yes, I will guide them to a meditation to look into themselves. What we also do there is they look at someone else, because looking at someone else is a lot easier. Like, if you're supposed to
Yes.
counsel someone else, you can tell them, don't do this because it's
Do
so
as
much.
I advise, not what I actually do, because I can give advice, but I don't take it for myself. Yes. Pardon the interruption. If you're liking the show so far, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow the show and the channel and to the show.
Correct, right? So it's a lot easier to do that way. So if you're really wanting to see, for example, hey, what is so charged about me? Or, like, why do I attract toxic relationships? It might be very hard for you to look inside yourself because, come on, like when you look at that, you remember all the instances. So instead of being in your intuitive place, you go to the place where it actually happened and you start feeling the pain and so on. And that's in terms of the clearing, in terms of the awareness, that's not required. Like you're not required to really go through that whole trauma again. That's just not it is not required at all. Mm-hmm. So rather what you could do is you could look at other people. And when you look at other people, then you can go like, oh, okay, this is what happened for them. But again, using your intuition for that. Like, I'm just going to look at someone else who had this toxic relationship, maybe even someone you read about in the newspapers or in the media, and just look at them. Because when you're looking at them, this is the great thing that we are all mirrors. The whole world is a mirror. It's a fabric of imagination. It doesn't sound okay, right? Like to a lot of people who are very logical thinkers and how we've been brought up. But just for a moment, entertain the fact or entertain this thought that the world's sort of showing to us all the time stuff that we need to heal and do. So when you look at someone else and when you're looking at what is it that they need to do, you're getting insights for yourself because you're literally operating, you're seeing the same vibration, you're seeing literally that's you'll own. Okay, the other way of explaining that, even if this thought is like so out of the world, hey, the world's a mirror, like what do you mean? Then just think of it this way, that you will see things based on your awareness. You'll see things based on how much you are ready at. So when you are looking at someone else, you look at it through those eyes. So your experience of a toxic relationship will define what you see in the other person, especially when you're just tuning into them and when you're just seeing, hey, why did this happen for person X, right? You're just tuning into your intuition and there's no pressure of talking to someone else or something, like just sit and do that in your meditation. It is going to be filtered with your experiences. And from what I've seen, like the guides, your intuition, it will always flow through bringing in messages that you need. And that's usually the easier way to do it.
Right.
If you're attached to something.
Right. And yeah, because when we're looking at ourselves, it is a lot harder. Just as you said, like I have a really good friend of mine, and when we talk about things, she'll ask my opinion, and I'll talk to her, and I'll say, you might want to think about this, or you might want to, and as I'm talking to her, I also then say, I'm also talking to myself, because the advice that I'm giving her is the advice that I know I need to be doing, or I am doing, or working on for myself, because it is that mirror. Like we see those things of ourselves in others and others in us as well.
It's great that you are that self-aware, and I wish we all could understand that. I came across this reel as a parent. So a lot of times we feel like our kids, and it just happened at the minute where my son was little and I was going to the toilet. And even then he was sort of outside the door and he's like, Mommy, when are you coming out? And there's a part of me which is thinking like, come on, I just need a break here.
Right.
And I don't usually scroll on Instagram. But that time I did. And there was this one reel that came up and he's like, whatever is happening in your life is a mirror. And so I just had to think about my son and what was happening. And he was asking that whatever's happening with your kids as well, they're just reflecting what is it that you need. And so I'm like, okay, as I'm sitting on the toilet, I'm like, okay, what does my son need now? And what is the trigger in me that he's showing? And so I just thought that he just needed more attention because I needed more attention. I needed to feel a lot more safe. I needed to feel a lot more loved. Just needed to feel a lot more seen. And so instead of then reacting from, hey, why can't I get this peaceful time in the toilet? And why do I have to have, someone waiting for me? It was more like, okay, he just needs to be seen. He just wants to feel like he's loved and he's wanted even then. And when you can do that part, when you can switch that around, when you can start looking at your relationships like that, because there was definitely a part in me which wanted to be so much seen by my parents while I was growing up. If we can do that, it is such a wonderful step of self healing. You don't even have to go to a meditation to figure out what the real triggers are because the world's already showing that to you.
Right. And that is a great example to use because every parent understands it. Every parent has been in the situation where it's like, I just want to go to the bathroom and be alone for like 3 minutes kind of thing. Yeah, I think every parent who's listening can absolutely relate to that. But at the same time, you're right. It's knowing it's that mirror of what they need. And even though we think we just want to be alone for those few minutes, it's actually that we're wanting to be seen and noticed and heard even in that alone moment.
Yep. And a great thing that I started doing after that was so while I look at my son and I try and help him and I go like, okay, you want to be seen. I'm also understanding that, all right, my inner child did not feel seen. So I'll do this a lot of times that as I talk to him and as I comfort him, I'll also pretend like there's a little version of me and I'll talk to that girl as well. That, hey, I love you. So I'm saying I love you to him and I'm saying I love you to me and my inner part, like, I see you. I want you.
Right, right. And I mean, that's a really big thing that people want and kids want is to be seen and to be heard. And depending how we grew up, some kids may have been seen but not heard, or maybe they feel like they've been heard but they weren't really seen. And that carries through and that carries through to us as adults. And I think we all want to be seen and heard. And the way that we want it is different. Sometimes it's through recognition of getting promotions, making really good money, having a big house, the fancy car. Other times it's giving back to community and being part of fundraising events or whatever it may be to be part of that community. And we all have different ways that we want to be seen and heard.
Totally. Yes, the different ways. Some people want to dress up, some people want to be really in the limelight, others will be quiet, for example. Others just want to be understood, not really spoken. Like some people will like big birthdays, others will just want to have like a nice, quiet, small gathering. Yep,
Right.
totally.
Right. And so you said sometimes when you're talking to your son, you're also talking to like the child part of you. So how does that also affect you when you're talking to the child of you while you're speaking to your son?
Oh, well, so me, my son, and my own growth relationship, it's such a great thing. And it's got its challenges because I'm so, I think, addicted to my growth. I'll continue working on myself. And as I continue working on myself, which means like I really want to peel deeper and deeper layers of me. So I have, as I teach as well, but I also have other teachers that I work with. So I do a lot of deep work, and usually with that, I'll also notice because I'm doing it. And then my son, also kids, I think naturally they're very open as well. My son, I believe he's got a much more open channel, and especially as they're younger, they're more attached to us energetically as well. The cords are not as separate. Um,
Right.
so they're really attuned to their parents or to their caregivers, particularly at a young age. So I would often see that my growth, like I'll give you examples again, and I think that explains better. There's this new year, I remember the word, again, new year also, I think new year is the time when the earth changes a year. So we all have, yes, at the outset, we all feel like we all want to celebrate. It's Christmas, it's New Year's. But I also know, having seen a lot of my clients, students, myself, that we're all undergoing some deeper change. So that new year for me was very much around feeling abandonment. And I was coming up with the stuff around my parents, and I was feeling abandoned there. I'd done some past life work, and I was realizing I was orphaned so many times. It was running deep inside me.
Pardon the interruption. If you're enjoying this episode and you're someone who values performance, clarity, and personal growth, then you're going to love my Mind Matters weekly newsletter. Every week, I send out a quick, powerful piece designed to help high achievers like you master your mindset, upgrade your habits, and lead with more clarity and fulfillment. It's not fluff, it's science backed, actionable, and easy to digest. It as your weekly reset button to realign with the leader you're becoming. So if you want to go deeper than what we've covered here on the show, then head over to www.sallypederson.com. That's me, and subscribe. Your next breakthrough just might be one email away. Now back to the show. Mhm.
And this is not to say that my parents are bad parents. I would just note that, all parents are doing the best that they can. And my parents did the best that they could, they knew. But it's just that we all, as souls, also bring in our experiences. We're supposed to learn certain things, so we feel certain things certain way. Well, so that is what I was going through that new year. And I was feeling really abandoned. And my son, because he's mirroring and he's going to give me just what I need to learn more. And sometimes it's like a double whammy. So that time he came up and he's like, Mommy, I don't think you love me anymore. And I'm like,
oh no. Like right away, the heart just goes, oh, what?
So it's like that. Like, how can you say that? So I'm in shock. And then I'm realizing, okay, he's a child. But it takes, right, hindsight's a good thing. But that time I was coming from a really empty cup, so to speak, myself. I wasn't feeling loved within. And he had to show me the exact thing. So he's going like, I don't think you love me anymore. And so first of all, yes, my mind went in the analytical state. So then, and then when I can't sit down and meditate and I'm still feeling this, so that's my favorite moment where I'll bring my little child out. So as I'm comforting him, I'm going like, hey, hon, why do you feel that way? Mommy loves you. And, just trying to understand, because kids are very much in the moment and they might have misperceived something. So I was just trying to explain to him. And then I was telling my little girl as well. And turned out that for my son, there are breaks that I take in between. Like I would, so like if something really bothered me, my way was usually like, let me just take a break. So I would walk out for a few minutes, not punishing him or anything, but I would just go to the toilet, or I would just walk away for 5 minutes and then come back. And he really felt unseen, unloved at that time. Like, you walked away from me. And so that was the moment of just telling him that this is not that I love you less. It's not that you've done anything wrong. It's just that I need space. Sometimes I get overwhelmed and I just need to deal with me. And I want to be a better person with you. So I take the time out. But I realized that I hadn't explained it to him. I hadn't explained it to the little child. So it was that coming to full circle. But even while I sit with him and I comfort him and I hold him and I'm saying that, hey, I love you, it works beautifully well with my own inner child as well, because it helps all those tears go down. My son, I think he's supposed to help me bring in a lot more emotions. I think that's our contract together. He helps me deal with the deeper parts of emotions that in general as a person I've learned to just walk away from. And he makes me see that darker side.
Interesting. And I think it's also important to explain to children things that we normally don't think about, like saying to him, it's, mommy needs just a few minutes to just kind of relax. I'd be careful with take a timeout, because if we put kids in timeout when they're bad, we don't want to say, I need a timeout, because I don't want them to think I'm doing something bad, if I need a timeout, because then they're, to me, that would just be a little bit confusing for them. But to explain, because we assume, or in past, we've assumed that kids aren't as in tune to things as we now know that they are. Like they have discovered up until about 6 or 7 years of age, like that energy that children feel is very strong, stronger than it probably the strongest that it is in our lives, because we tend to start to disconnect to it because we're starting to more use our analytical thinking mind as opposed to that energy. But all they understand is energy. And so it is important, I think, that we do explain things to them, even if they may not understand the words that we're using. It definitely helps in situations for them to understand and to grow as well as they are getting older.
Yeah, I think both points that you raise are really good. Just for my son, we've never used timeout with him. So it's never like a wrong thing. It is actually used more like, okay, I just need to take some time for myself and so on.
Mm.
So I've tried to be as open and as honest. And I don't think it's a confusing term. But yes, by all means, listeners should use terminologies or use all of this information that we're talking about and mold it to their own specific environments, however it fits them.
Right.
Um, yeah. And it is great around kids, like, especially, so I'm an engineer by background and an MBA professional, so I'm very left brained in
Mm-hmm.
general, as I was growing up. And then all of this, I just got into energy healing because life threw me that way. And I have been skeptical about it for a really long time. But I've also wanted to understand that, like without having, a scientific degree or a medical degree. But I've generally wanted to understand how things are happening
Mm-hmm.
and why they're happening certain way. And especially as an energy coach, what I try and do is so I'm a clairvoyant. I'll close my eyes and I'll just be able to see things, or I'll get visions. And so it's been very interesting observing my child and just seeing energetic ties that way. And what happens is, think about it, like when they're born, right? Especially with the mom, they've lived in the same body. So they've come out, but energetically, like the body is still pretty much like in there. And that's why mums will, there's just a special bond that mums will have, or they might also feel the PTSDs and so on, because it could also feel like the body's been overtaken and they don't have
Mm-hmm.
control of that body. So it's a lot of, like, when you start understanding the energy behind it and how the cords are tied and how energetically entwined everything is, then it starts making sense on the outside as to what is happening physically. Around when they start getting independent is when they're 2 or 3, when they're really starting to walk and do their things, um, even just eat food by themselves or just find things by themselves, but they're just really becoming their own little people around that time. That's when they're breaking away some of the energetic cords. But for a huge amount of time, like and between 6 to 8, it's very interesting the age that you've mentioned there. That's when they're starting to break away the cords, because they're really getting into their own self and they're bringing, and that's again why parents will feel like different shifts around that time physically. Like, that's why we say the terrible twos, because the kids are understanding, okay, they're independent. They're like really cutting off some of the cords and going like, okay, don't need mom for everything now. Like, I'm not in
Mm-hmm.
her body anymore. So they're physically detaching from her energetic body, so to speak. And then around 6 or 7, they're cutting more of it because they're wanting more independence. So in energy terms, I do a better exercise for parents. I'd actually allow, like, depends everything on the child as well.
Right.
But it's a very delicate process where, depending on how they want, you would allow them to cut some cords because you want them to feel safe. You want them to feel energetically like they've got their space. And then you would
Mm-hmm.
connect it to the higher chakras rather, so that they're more getting information from you. So let's say your crown, your sixth chakra, you would connect that with them because you want them to have that judgment, that foresight that you have. But the other things like the survival things and so on, and it depends on the child as well because they can be a little bit more independent. You would cut it out if the child really wants it,
Right.
depending on how they're going, like not taking their crutches away, not taking it away very soon, but like sort of hand holding them and letting them be in the space as long as they want.
Right. Because they need us for certain things for a certain point, and then they have to be independent because for survival, eventually they need to be. And it is just going with where they're at, and everyone's different. Every parent is different, every child is different, so that the connection between the two will be different within those years as to how much some kids want independence really early and they're, as we would say, strong or stubborn, and others are okay of being kind of under the wing of the parents for longer. So it's working with both. The parent child need to work together as to what's right because there is no definite right or wrong when is good to do certain things because it's so individualized.
But you could also show them things in the energetic space,
Mm-hmm.
like if you want your child, for example, to be a lot more independent and they're not, you can show it to their spirit. And sometimes you'll see that they're just scared of it. And again, that scariness might be because of some past life imprint that they're carrying. Like with my son, I realized that there was a fear around just him wanting to grow up because there was a lifetime where he had just been a child labor, like he'd worked at a very early stage. And so he
Mm.
just did not want to grow up because why grow up? Because the minute you grow up and you're able to do things, like you've got to work and you've got to have a living. So
I still don't want to grow up. No. I remember because I was at a friend's house the other day and we were talking to her, with her son and there's a few of us hanging out. He's 21 right now and he's like, "Oh, I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life." And I'm like, "You're 21. You've got lots of time. Like enjoy. I get have a direction and you're in university, so you're doing good, but don't put too much pressure
yeah.
on yourself just yet. Like you've got a lot of time to just try things, practice things, see what you like, discover things you don't like.
Yeah.
You have time."
Yeah, totally, totally. We've got time and we can all have fun, I think. And actually,
Mm,
that's like sort of a bigger message that I'd want to tell everyone as well, because we come to the world, and, often a lot of times we're like, hey, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And I
right.
think in this one sentence, like just find your happiness, just do that. That is aligning to your purpose. Like it seems because the world's wired to sort of think hard, to do things the hard way. That's what we are told. And this seems like, come on. You're saying like this sounds so easy, right?
Right. Right. And I mean, there's things that are hard in life, but we've also come here, I think, to enjoy, to have experiences. I think that's what life is about, experiences. And some experiences, they kind of suck. Like there is heartbreak, there is sadness. But on the flip side, I've often thought, like, if we don't know sadness, we don't know happy. We don't know
Mhm.
joy. We don't know, like, we do kind of have to have all of the emotions and feelings and experiences to appreciate them all. We don't want to stay in what we would consider the negative ones, for a long period of time. If we can shorten the amount of sadness and sorrow and things like that, we experience it, we know what it's like, don't want to stay there long, but to have more of that joy, happiness, adventure, excitement, all of those things. And in whatever ways it brings to people, like it could be skydiving for that adrenaline rush where other people might be freaked out thinking, no way, I don't want to do that. But having those, and it's interesting to think that we have those connections to past lives, which would make us want to do those things more, or the opposite, not make us want to not do certain things because we're worried or afraid. And right now we're thinking, I don't know why I'm so afraid. I don't know why I don't want to do that. And it could be because of that past life experience that we had that we are consciously unaware of, but obviously subconsciously, because there is something saying, like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's scary.
Yeah, yeah. But usually, if you are really feeling that pull, that is what you should be doing. And that's why they say, go ahead, like just conquer your fear. So just
Mm,
go to the place that is bringing you happiness because innately it will join you to your purpose. Everybody comes into the world with a purpose, whether that is like just to have a nice, groovy life, just to have an enjoyable life, just to have those experiences, whether it is like to make something bigger, whether it is, uh, to have an enjoyable family life. But everybody has a purpose. So just
mm,
find that joy, find that spark, and capture all the fears in between, whatever you're feeling like, out of my comfort zone. Try and do that, but go and find your happiness.
absolutely. And Kanika, if people wanted some help to discover, kind of what makes them happy, their purpose, or maybe if they've got some past life things that they need to deal with, where can they get in touch with you?
So they can find me on Instagram. They can find me on LinkedIn with at Kanika Energy Coach. So the Kanika is Kanika, Kanika Energy Coach. And you'll find me with that. You could even find my website with that. I do an energy live healing session occasionally as well, like once in a quarter. And in this session, I take people through, it's a very interactive session. I take people through a place where we'll all come together and we'll heal our energy together because I really want to share this with people that it's not that hard. It's not that hard to change stuff in your life. A lot of times we get told, like, hey, get over this, or why haven't you moved on? But how do you move on? We don't know. And the funny part is, it's not very hard at all, which is why I do these live free sessions because I want people to come in and I want people to just experience it for themselves. Once you start playing with energy, you can shift your world outside, but it's not hard. It's really, you cannot do anything wrong. There's just no wrong way. And you don't even need to fully believe it to see it happening in action, but just the amazing stuff about it.
That's fantastic. And I will make sure to have the links to everything in the show notes to make it easy for people to connect with you and come to your energy healing classes to just at least give it a try. Experience it once, give it a try and people can see what it does for them. So I want to thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks a lot, Sally. I've really, really enjoyed my time here. Thank you.